you want to see your name in the end credits? Go check out our coffee, and as low as $1 a month, you can have your name on the end screen at the end of every video. Giving is also welcome. Links for the coffee are in the description of the video. The following episode is a storyboard that me and my girlfriend have been working on for the better part of 2 weeks. This is a story that we believe would be a good prequel to the Incredible Universe, and we would like to get our pitch out there especially to the big star viewer that is watching the channel. Please, enjoy.
The series opens with the city being busy as ever. People driving to their jobs, conversations at coffee shops, and kids playing in the park. When suddenly, BOOM! A large robot made by the toy maker attacks the city. The voice goes on about how the system does not care about them and how easy it will be to take over their world. As it gets stopped in its tracks by its own weight, it tries to move, but its legs are just heavier. We look to the skies and see Apogee looming over this bot, preventing it from moving any further. As she tells the toy maker to surrender, the android lets out a blast from its arm cannon, leaving Apogee distracted and dodging its attacks. As she flies around trying to get it grounded once more, we hear a loud as the robot is knocked back a few feet from where it was. The Flange has come to assist his team in the fight. Apogee looks to the Flange seemingly amused, saying he could have gotten there sooner, but he jokes about how he needed to get his vocal warm-ups in before the fight. As the robot regains its footing, Apogee attempts to sink this massive hunk of metal into the ground as the Flange attempts to destroy it completely. With this tandem going on, more and more of the surrounding area is getting destroyed. As the group begins to shake from the fight, the robot builds up enough strength to pick up a piece of the road and throw it right at the Flange. With only Apogee left, struggling to keep this thing in place for longer, it slowly makes its way to her. It starts to go on a monologue on how supers are only a stepping stone in the toy man's reign. As it picks up a bus, bearing it down. But before he could finish, and before he could get to Apogee, we cut to a point of view of the android as its vision is then cut in half. As both its halves slums over, Apogee catches the bus with her gravity powers and sets it down to the side. Through the smoke, out walks a man with his visor glowing red, approaching the duo. Gazerbeam helps the Flange up to recover, checking on him as Apogee lands beside him. They all exchange smiles as the crowd applauds the supers for saving the day once more. They smile and wave, but in the foreground, Gazerbeam sees people still hurt from the fight. He attempts to tend to them, but the media has already swarmed the 3 supers. We cut to the team returning to their base as the Flange goes to take a drink of water, and Apogee goes to lay down on the couch. Gazerbeam sits as he starts the paperwork in distributing assets for collateral damage. Apogee goes in on Gazer for being bothered by the paperwork and saying how the government will cover the damages. Gazer lectures her on how they could have been more careful with the fight to minimize the damage dealt to the block. And Apogee retorts with a whole "we saved the day" talk. It evolves into a full-blown argument where the Flange is forced to break it up. With them both calming down, they settle the argument and start to talk about the gathering downtown. Apparently, Bob and Helen got engaged. We cut to the party at the bar where we see all the supers in their secret identities. Except for Universal Man, he's still in his uniform. Everyone is having fun congratulating Bob and Helen, also known as Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl, in their engagement. Lucius and Simon then pull Bob to the side as Helen goes with her group as well. They talk about stories on their best saves, they joke, but when Simon tries to joke, it lands flat. As the party continues, the door swings open. A man wearing a blue jacket walks in with neatly combed blonde hair. Jack approaches Bob, Lucius, and Simon, congratulating him first and foremost. The room gets a little tense at first, but then they both burst out into laughter as everyone starts to laugh as Jack, Bob, Lucius, and Simon all share drinks as the party continues on. They laugh and catch up even more as hours pass. Everyone is a couple drinks in. Universal Man is going in on how his mask is his true face. Psychwave pulls Downburst into the back room. And Lucius, Bob, Simon, and Jack settle down. After a long while of talking, Jack gets up from the table as he starts to transition over to the women in the bar. He starts off the conversation as normal, as they all have a laugh about the stories that they shared. Bob and Lucius are busy conversing about personal stuff as Simon moves his gaze over to Jack. Noticing his hand placements on the women, he's getting a little too friendly with the female supes. He starts to touch them in places that would make any woman feel uncomfortable, as he continues to try to take advantage of these women. Simon gets up and taps Jack on the shoulder, excusing him from the female group. A sigh of relief washes over them as we come to find out that Jack was flirting with Apogee and Plasma Bolt at the same time. Simon pulls Jack to the back alley at the bar as he shrugs his hand off. Simon warns Jack about his actions and reminding him of the last time he put his hands on a woman without consent. Jack goes on about how he used to be Handsome Jack, and any woman would be lucky to have him as their partner. Simon tells him he can't keep defending quote-unquote Handsome Jack in court every time he gets excited around women. Jack gets frustrated and tries to push his way back to the bar as Simon blocks him. Jack powers up his fists, threatening Simon to move or he will be moved. And Simon responds by simply looking at him as his bright blue eyes begin to turn red. Jack laughs it off as he powers down, patting Simon on the shoulder as he fixes his hair. Simon, still staring at him, guides him back into the bar as he forces Jack to apologize to his co-workers. As the night dies down, everyone goes their separate ways. The thrilling three walk together as they joke and laugh on the way back to their individual houses. The Flange is the first one to part, being led into his condo in the city. Simon and Apogee are left together as they walk, talking about their personal lives before they were supers, more and more. As finally, we approach Apogee's home. They let go of each other's hands as they greet each other goodnight. Before approaching the door, Apogee gives Simon a kiss on the cheek as he smiles and her disappearing into her home. We cut to Simon's dark home with awards on the wall, a certificate on the center of his desk, and as the door shuts, we see at the back of the door Simon J. Palladino, pro bono lawyer. The following episodes will continue to explore the dynamic of the supers and their lifestyle, mostly through the perspective of Gazerbeam, but each individual hero will have their solo episode. But for now, we follow Simon protecting the innocent as a pro bono lawyer. And he's an extremely good one, having a case win rate of 98%. Also being the lawyer of his friends, he works for both the people and the supers. As Gazerbeam, he and the Thrilling Three are effective at saving the city. They also encounter their fellow supers when on missions, and some episodes will dive deeper into their relationships with each other. Like how Simon and Bob are much closer than we thought, Apogee and Psychwave being high school friends, The Flange being an opera singer, and many more. Each episode will run 30 to 40 minutes long, exploring the relationship of each hero of the glory days, and how human they can really be. An episode will mostly focus on Gazerbeam and his friend Hypershock. Dealing with alcoholism, Hypershock is caught drunk on a mission. During a fight with Baron Von Ruthless, the Thrilling Three are en route. Hypershock zooms past the chopper that they are currently in. Gazerbeam attempts to get in contact with him, but as he reaches his comms, Hypershock stumbles his words, letting the group know exactly his condition. He is in no way, shape, or form ready for work. Apogee tries to catch up with Hypershock, but as the sun slowly sets, Apogee's powers start to slowly dwindle away as Hypershock zooms even faster. As he gets closer to Baron Von Ruthless' latest mutant, he raises both of his seismic hammers as he slams it into the massive mutant's chests. The impact is so strong, it not only destroys the mutant, it almost levels a building. As this massive building starts to come down on itself because of Hypershock's recklessness, the Thrilling Three run to save civilians from the falling building. Apogee tries to keep the building upright as her powers get weaker and weaker as the sun sinks deeper. As the Flange destroys falling debris from the damage, Gazerbeam, as swift as he can, grabs civilians out of harm's way. As Apogee starts to tire out as the sun fully sets on the horizon, Gazerbeam goes back for one little girl looking for her mother in the rubble. He sprints towards her as Apogee faints from the exhaustion of her powers. He dives towards the little girl, embracing her, bracing for the impact of the falling building. But just then, the building stops. Gazer looks up to see a figure, cape flowing in the wind, glowing in the moonlight. Metaman, lifting the entire structure off of the ground. Gazerbeam looking up at the scene and back to the little girl, comforting her, letting her know that everything will be alright. As Metaman lets the building down by an empty park, the Thrilling Three are glad to see him just in the nick of time. But instead of cheers, they hear outrage coming from behind them. They turn to see Hypershock being bombarded by the people, enraged by the super's recklessness. Gazerbeam attempting to help his friend, but he's stopped by Apogee and Metaman. The episodes continue to delve deeper into their personal relationships, both as supers and non-supers. It's now the mid-season of the series. The team is not as strong as it once was. Gazerbeam begins to become more careful in his saves and much more strict with his team. After every mission, he buries himself in paperwork after damages, health insurance, and payments to the city for the damage that they caused. Whenever there was a civilian who got severely injured in a fight, he would tend to them right away as they got the job done. He would bring this up to the team more often than not, talking about how they should have been more careful in their saves. Collateral damage isn't just about buildings they destroy. It was about the people that they were putting in danger with these fights. Then, out of nowhere, Apogee gives Gazerbeam the statement that struck him. You can't save everyone. To Gazerbeam, that was more than just a knife to the heart. It was a bulldozer driven through a china shop to him. He believed supers had the ability to save everyone. Superpowered beings that chose to do good instead of harm. And coming from a super that could fly and manipulate gravity, having such a mindset did not sit right with Gazer. It did not sit well with Simon, knowing that his partner, June, Apogee, far from the woman that he fell in love with, he did not want to be a part of a group that only wanted to get the job done, and for the sake of getting it done. But in reality, he could not accept the truth. The group disbanded, and so did the relationship he had with Apogee. He went solo once more for a while, sometimes encountering other heroes from other missions, some old friends and some fresh faces. And finally, come the day of Bob and Helen's wedding. Finally, the day of Bob and Helen's wedding arrives. All of their super friends come together into one massive gathering. They all settle down in their chairs as Gazerbeam looks around as he waits for Bob. Asking Lucius where he could have been, he thinks to himself, maybe he's running a little late. As Gazer looks around, he sees Apogee on the female side of the church. He tries to look at her, but she pretends that she doesn't see him. The flange taps him on the shoulder, making sure that everything is alright, as Helen walks down the aisle. But he thinks to himself, where the hell is Bob? Hours go by and the sun sets. All of the supers and the rest of the guests are confused. Where the hell is the groom? As everyone thinks that Bob walked out on Helen, he finally arrives in his best suit. As they share a kiss, everyone applauds, as Simon gives the couple a warm smile. He looks back at his former teammates, first at the flange, seeming happy at their union. They look towards Apogee, thinking, what could have been? In the third act of the season, we open with Simon calling his old friends, all being left on voicemail. Currently in a coffee shop with his oldest friend Lucius, trying to call Apogee for the longest time, trying to make amends for lost time. She still doesn't answer. Talking to Lucius on how lonely he's been since the gang disbanded and how everyone went into hiding. Lucius reminds him that he isn't alone. Him and Bob are still around to keep him company. He asks about Jack and how he's doing, but all Lucius says that the last he heard of him was he was on a business trip with his secretary. They both chuckle, knowing Jack is most definitely not on a business trip with his female secretary. They talk about the glory days and how they miss it from time to time. But this life, it's peaceful. Simon brings up a point though. He's been fighting for supers' rights for the better part of 10 years. And sometimes, he does miss saving people the other way. Lucius says he does too. But with time, And with Simon in the front lines, supers will be legal again. Later in the episode, Simon is in another court hearing and why supers should be legal again. With some of the NSA board members backing him,
All rise.
the offense bring up one of his old friends as a case against him. Gamma Jack. With over 15 sexual harassment cases, Gamma Jack, even under the supervision of the NSA, he still found time to commit these kinds of crimes against supers, villains, and normal women alike. This not only sets Simon back by a lot, but this brings Simon to the brink of a mental breakdown. After being dismissed for the day, he goes home and straight to the secret entrance in his home. He shuts the door to what seems to be a thick titanium-plated room, surrounded by reflective material. As the room door closes, he lets out his anger and sadness into one massive beam of energy. The room is filled with the red light it emits as Simon completely breaks down. The next day, checking his bag to get ready for another day of fighting for their rights, he finds a tablet. A message from a mysterious woman claiming that the company that she represents can help Simon achieve his ultimate goal of making supers legal again. Curious on how she knew who he was, he remembers seeing this woman in the court hearing the day prior. More skeptical than anything, he takes the card it produces and throws it in the panic room before it could explode. He keeps the card, contemplating what it would mean for supers' rights. But there was something in the back of his head that didn't quite sit right with him. So, he does a little digging on the company's name. And with hours of research, he finds little to nothing. But before giving up completely, he finds this company has been dealing arms to countries all around the world, including the NSA. It is known for its innovations in dealing with villains because of the loss of superpowered humans. This makes Simon even more skeptical on who he's dealing with. He contemplates throwing the card entirely out the window, but he thinks about it. Really thinks about it. He gives Apogee one last call, looking at the card as he does. He lets her know this might be their chance to be super again. The leverage they need to break their case wide open. He ends it with a simple sentiment. I miss you. He hangs up and looks around the room at his accomplishments as a lawyer over the past 10 years. Then, as he circles around, he looks over to the wall where most of his work as a super is also hung. He sits there. If this is the right move, he thinks. But then, something hits him. Why hasn't anyone from his old team listened to his voicemails? Why hasn't he seen them? Why hasn't Jack come back from his business trip? Could they also have gone to call to arms like this? Could they have been recruited just like he was? He has more questions than answers. So, he calls the number on the card, saying that he is in, but not for the glory of being a super again, but getting to the bottom of what's going on. On the flight to the island, he and Mirage converse about what he's doing there. His job is to destroy a prototype of a combat droid out in the field. He says he's basically cleanup duty. As he gets the gist of what he has to do, being dropped in, he gets right to work, finding the droid in the jungle. But as he investigates around, he looks more thoroughly at what he's looking at. As he skims the wildlife, he notices these birds are far more mechanical than normal. As he looks deeper, he notices that the eyes of these birds are cameras, watching his every move. Not quite sure what they are, he continues on with his original mission, trying to find the droid. As he skims the jungle with his supervision, he looks around, finding no trace of the droid. As he stops in his tracks as a massive X on the floor catches his attention. As then, the android squares up on Gazerbeam almost as swiftly as it arrives. Unfazed, Gazer simply focuses his vision and slices the thing to pieces with his laser vision and reports back to Mirage. He looks directly at another bird watching him as we cut to see a spectator room where everyone in the room is shocked at how Gazerbeam took out the Omnidroid so easily. Everyone but Mirage and the familiar figure in the background. They remark at how efficient Gazerbeam was when it came to the mission, as he is then invited to dinner. As the sun sets, Gazer and Mirage converse about their shared cause. To find out what the conversation was about, go check out the Gazerbeam solo video I made. But a quick summary of what it was. Mirage appeals to Gazerbeam, being a martyr of the supers, how he's fighting for the rights of his friends, and how ironic it is being exiled by the people you swore to protect. During the conversation, Gazerbeam connects the dots on what she's talking about, still extremely skeptical on what is going on here. He decides before leaving the island tomorrow, he'll return to this lobby and get to the bottom of what is behind that lava wall. The next day, at 4 a.m, Gazerbeam sneaks into the facility stealthily, easily sticking into the shadows. As Gazer gets back to the room they had dinner, he waits and waits and waits. As he uses his supervision once more to see past the wall, he sees Mirage by a computer, a massive screen, going through what seems to be a plan, an invasion plan. Finally, the lava wall opens, and out comes Mirage. As she leaves the room, he runs into the room as it closes. Here, he discovers that what was in that computer, dimly lit, with a massive screen. He accesses the terminal and is greeted with a password. He thinks about what it could have been. But then he thinks back to what he and Mirage talked about during the dinner date. He thinks deeper. Why would she give him these hints? And why does it make perfect sense? He enters the password, Kronos, and he gets full access to the files. As he scrolls through, he sees a tab labeled Supers. He opens it. As he does, he sees every single test run on these androids and how each of his friends died. As he skims through the death of his friends, we finally see where Apogee has been all this time. Being ambushed on a recon mission at night, he nearly gets up and jumps out of his seat in shock as a tear runs down his visor. Gazerbeam sits there, distraught, enraged, and mortified on what he's seen. He could not let this happen. He downloads the files to his flash drive and makes a break for the exit. But as he does, he's greeted by the latest Omnidroid. He stops as he tries to cut through it like the last one. But as he does, this time, his beams have no effect on it. Shocked at this revelation, he tries to attack Gazer, but he dodges. As he's maneuvering, dodging his attacks, he thinks back to what could have happened. Why is it no longer affected by his beams? Then, he thinks back to the files. He realizes that each prototype was made specifically to deal with each of the supers. And this one was the latest version to deal with him. Why else would Mirage be dropping hints on what the password was? They wanted this. They were confident that in the latest prototype, there was no way that he could have won. And as he thinks, he gets distracted as the bot goes to grab him. He dodges, but he gets pierced in the abdomen instead. The cut is deep, and Gazer is bleeding a lot, and fast. He fights this Omnidroid for the better part of 20 minutes before he gets backed up against the cliff. Exhausted, blood running cold, the Omnidroid fires a beam at Gazer as he jumps down the waterfall. The people watching this through the monitor ask the figure what to do now. As the figure said, he's not worth it anymore. He's probably in a cave, alone, hopeless, and bleeding. As he emerges in the dark cave, he crawls to a nearby ledge. He sits back on a broken stalagmite as he slowly loses consciousness. With his dying breath, he uses the last of his strength to focus hard enough to etch his last message to the next super that would be unfortunate enough to be recruited. As he prays to whoever gets recruited and finds his last words, his visor goes cold as we pan over to what he wrote. As we do, we see the point of view of Gazerbeam. The last word, Kronos, as the screen fades to black.